Good day, good night. Welcome to Five Rings Daily. Day 2 wrapped up, and gentlemen, I think I finally figured it out. I'm not too tired this morning. I think I got this 14 hours jet lag things under control.
Well, that's good because I'm just not sleeping. That's basically my strategy.
Ben, how about you?
I don't even know what time it is. I'm pretty sure it's Sunday because I'm not at work. Beyond that, I'm kind of in a fog.
You'll know exactly. I actually had to look this morning to figure out whether it was Sunday or Monday. Ben Massey joins us on the line. Ben is a curling freak, I guess we'll call him. He follows the game as close as anyone. Thought we'd have him on to have a little chat about the curling event. Before we do that, Ben, just how are you enjoying your Olympic experience so far?
It's all of these cross the ocean Olympics just seem like a constant fever dream, but it's been really, really interesting. You know, even to the non-curling events, just things have been happening. So it's been good watching.
Well, that's good. And obviously you watch the curling quite a bit, and we have a bit of a change up in this year's Olympics from past Olympics in the sense that we started off with this mixed event, which isn't actually that familiar to a lot of Canadians. It seems to have gained some popularity. A lot of people seem to like it. As a traditionalist, Ben, what are your thoughts on the inclusion of mixed curling in the Olympics?
I view it as analogous to Rugby 7, say. It's a gimmick. It's silly. We all know what it is. But just because a bag of chips isn't a real meal doesn't mean you don't like a bag of chips once in a while.
It's not a meal?
I would hate to be one of those countries like Lithuania or something which treats mixed doubles as the pinnacle of their curling program, but I don't mind watching it once in a while.
Well, is it telling then that we have a pair in John Morris and Caitlin Laws that has basically been parachuted in from the team event, weren't ranked in the world rankings headed into this event, and they peeled off 6 in a row and looked like they're the gold medal favorite? Is that a bit telling of what the depth and strength of this field is?
I think that it's telling of the strength of the field. I also think it's telling the way the event has evolved, because there seems to be this meme that, the top teams in mixed doubles curling have been specialists in mixed doubles curling for many years, and then Canada only got good because we started to specialize. If you actually look at the teams in the Olympics, most of the teams that are competing right now are not mixed double specialists. I mean, South Korea, they're specialists. Russia, they're specialists. Switzerland, they're specialists. But the Americans play fours. The Chinese, both their players are playing fours in these Olympics. The Norwegians, who are strong medal contenders, they play fours. I mean, the situation with Canada is not as unusual as once it was. What's unusual is that when a Canadian fours team makes the Olympics, we don't let their players play mixed doubles, which is not what the Chinese and the Americans do.
What I'm wondering, Ben, I just want to get back to what you mentioned about the gimmick part. And there's two ways gimmicks, either they stay or they go away. What kind of gimmick do you think it will be? Will it be like the inline roller skating gimmick that went to the Olympic and went away really quickly? Or will it be like the giant slalom snowboarding parallel that came one year and literally is the only thing left from that aspect of the sport? Which one is it?
I think the reason mixed doubles became an Olympic event in the first place is because the games are so quick. It meant that you could actually have mixed curling in the Olympics, which people have wanted for some time. So from an Olympic perspective, just speaking very broadly, it's very unusual to get these sorts of mixed events where men and women compete together. And I think that might give it more staying power than perhaps its pure sporting credentials would cause you to expect. Now, that said, there's also curling every day that there's an event in these Olympics, and curling is not a marquee sport to 80% of the world. So will Japan or the United States or whoever winds up hosting the next 5 of these want to put that sort of effort in? I don't know. I blow hot and cold on that one.
Now let's go on the Pebble ice sheet. Let's talk a bit about this tournament. Canada has been playing amazing outside of their first game, And it's kind of interesting, too. They had to battle literally traffic to get there on time and to have to battle jitters and get to know each other. And even though they're true Canadians because they're apologizing to each other about every single time because they're not doing perfect shots, that, I want to say lack of perfection, but that more chaotic type of play that you would see. I just have the images of 6-7 rocks in the house at the end of draws, and it's kind of fascinating to me how, because of the lack of 3-4 sweepers and the lack of organization that a true team has in a game compared to just a mix, you do have a more interesting aspect of the game of beautiful shots or lack thereof, and it kind of is a bit more compelling to me. I don't know about you, Ben.
I kind of see that. Now, as a Canadian, the high randomness aspect of mixed doubles, because it is very high randomness, I find it frustrating because Canadians generally curl very well. And however well John Morris and Caitlin Laws have done to this point, they might well lose this evening to the Norwegians. But certainly the short clock, which reduces the amount of time you have to plan, the reduction in sweeping power, and the fact that you cannot take out a single stone, whether it's in the house or not, with any of the 4 rocks, it cranks up the chaos factor enormously. And any given draw, anything can happen, and no lead is safe. So from a sporting perspective, where you want to see the best team win, yeah, it can be frustrating. But if you're, say, a Chinese curling fan, well, you were very excited this morning until about 5 minutes before the end of the game, when you suddenly became very despondent because anything can happen.
Fair enough. Ben, I've been watching most of the tournament on the feeds that you can get on cbc.ca. That means that I get to the commentary raw. When they go to commercial, I hear them talking to each other. And one thing that the regular people listening on TV would not have heard is them making a comment about how they thought that the rest of the field were like deer in headlights when they saw Caitlin Laws and John Morris standing there, Norwegians aside, obviously, in that first game. And for those of you listening outside of Canada, you may find this idea absurd, but Caitlin Laws and John Morris are superstars in the game of curling. And if you're in that world, these guys are at a higher level than these curlers are. Do you think there's an element of that going on, that they're being more tentative, especially that Russian game? You saw a lot of mistakes made. Is there something there?
I think there is something there. The Russian team is a good example of a team that would have been affected by that. But that said, there's another team whose members would know John Morris and Caitlin Laws quite well because they compete against them a lot of weeks on the World Curling Tour, and that was the Americans of Matt and Becca Hamilton, and they went 2-5. So it's not all about the, keeping it together in the presence of these big names, because if you start making I think this is what happened to the Russians. They started making mistakes and they just couldn't keep together mentally. And that is actually, not to change the subject slightly, but that's a failing that John Morris himself is highly prone to.
Well, yeah, I think Caitlin Laws at times has carried him this week, and I've called it pound for pound the best curler in this event right now. I don't think that's much of a stretch. I mean, her resume speaks for itself there. I guess let's move ahead and talk about the 2 semifinal matchups. Ben, Canada is the favorite, I'd have to say, but as you say, a lot of chaos can happen there and anything can go. How does this not end up with a Canadian gold? What goes wrong if that is the case?
Well, the first possibility is just sheer randomness. It happens. There's no two ways about that. Second, the Canadians just played Korea in their final round robin game, and that was a nothing game for either team. Canada had already won. Korea was already eliminated. And the Canadians tried to get very cute with some of their shots. They tried to play a lot of soft weight, a lot of narrowly edging by guards, and they won because the Koreans aren't up to the standard. But they now have to get back into the highly competitive mentality against a strong Norwegian team. It's a Norwegian team that was stronger than fourth place in the round robin. They were my second best team. So this is not as easy a draw as the first place team should get. And they're coming right off this cream puff opponent. There's a mental aspect there.
No.
All right, fair enough. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, but now we're looking ahead to the team aspect of the curling, which team outside of Canada do you see as favorite? Because it's easy to mention Canada as favorite to win gold medal in curling. But has the rest of the world caught up yet? Or are they getting closer?
If we're talking about the men's and the women's, the fours, I'm leaving that open to see if we are talking about that.
Yes.
Okay. Certainly, there's a big argument to be made that the best men's team in curling right now is Swedish, the team of Nicholas Edin. They won the European Championships in November. They win most things. Now, they also got fairly humbled by Brad Gushue at the World Championships in 2017. But everyone got humbled by Brad Gushue at those World Championships. That was the best he's ever played. He's an Olympic champion. The men's, barring something strange, should be a two-horse race. The women, it could be Rachel Homan. She should be the best team in the world. But she's also lost a World Junior final before to Anna Hasselborg in very disheartening fashion. Eve Muirhead just won the European Championships. Victoria Moiseva, who's the Russian team that isn't Anna Sidorova, has come out of nowhere the last couple of years and is really competing. Now, certainly the men, I would be disappointed if Canada didn't medal. The women, Rachel Homan could play 8 out of 10 by her standards and finish fourth. It could happen.
Speaking of what could happen, is there a possibility that either Canada in the men's or the women's fours do not medal? Or am I just talking crazy here?
Again, I think that for Kevin Cooey not to medal for the men, he would have to just come unglued. And, I mean, some of the time he does that, but he doesn't do it in big events. If this was the West Tractor Northern Cash Spiel in Fort McMurray, maybe he finishes fifth for the Olympic Games. He's going to come out and play, and he's going to get something. For the women, Rachel Homan, she hasn't done this in some years, but there's always that lingering risk that she's just going to go a little crazy and she's going to be behind by 2 in the 7th end and she's going to try some double run back to get her 3, and it's just all going to go wrong. But the other side of it is, as I mentioned, Anna Hasselborg, Eve Muirhead, Victoria Moiseva, Silvana Tiranzoni, who I didn't mention, the Swiss curler. There are a lot of strong teams on the women's side. There's a lot of depth. So I would say that if we're going to finish 4th or 5th anywhere, it will be on the women's side.
Fair enough, Ben. I wonder, I'm curious about this. The Canadians traditionally have done very well at the Olympics. There have been the odd slip up. They have not won, they only swept the one time, right? So they do lose this competition sometime. Or is it twice? I'm trying to remember now. No, because they lost in Vancouver, correct? Yes. She caught flu or something. And yeah. At any rate, I'm wondering whether the pressure, the high-end pressure of the games that they have to play week in, week out, just to sometimes even get to a Scotties or a Brier, is what gives them that edge at an Olympic competition against teams that do often, they don't get parachuted in, but they have less competition to get there.
I think that's definitely a big advantage. I've always said the toughest curling tournament in the world, bar none, is the Canadian Olympic trials. There is no curling tournament with more teams of a world-class standard that can all win. And you look at Kevin Cooey. He put his team together just to get here. He put them together after Brier, I think 3 years ago. He broke up a team that had just won the Canadian Championship because he needed a team that had the mental expertise and the curling ability to win the Olympic trials. Mentally, I mean, this is a big experience for most of them, except Ben Hebert and Mark Kennedy, who already won an Olympic gold medal in Vancouver. But they're used to mental pressure. They're playing curlers who they've beaten before. The difference is that the time zones changed.
Fair enough. All right, Ben, I'm going to get into, as we know in this show, we do our bronze, silver, gold, and wood medals each day. I'm going to get you to do that for the curling tournament so far. But before I do that, I have one quick question on that mixed tournament. Now that we've seen it in the Olympics, do you think that this gains a greater foothold and gains more popularity over the next 4 years as teams maybe chase that Olympic gold medal? Do you think we see better teams going into it more often and it on TV more often in the next 4 years?
Guaranteed. Just leading up to this, you could see that teams are starting to take it a lot more seriously. That's why John Morris and Caitlin Laws are in it. Every year, the Continental Cup has a mixed doubles component. Used to be that it was a bit of a gimmick, just pass the time on a Saturday afternoon. the most recent Continental Cup teams were really gunning for that. There were always going to be some curlers who aren't interested in mixed doubles. There were always going to be some curlers who I think are going to be more interested in mixed doubles in the fours game. But we're going to see more of the elite curlers like John Morris, like Rachel Holman, who was John Morris's partner until she won the trials, taking a serious interest in the mixed doubles game.
All right, fair enough. And as we said, we do our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals each day during the Olympics. So we'll just rotate through and get your thoughts on what your medals are for the curling tournament up so far. As we usually like to start negative so we can end positive, Ben. So what would be your wood medal for the curling event thus far?
My wood medal so far is the United States. I mentioned them a couple times. They went, I think it was 2-5, and they were the only team that Finland beat, which is pretty bad. But they're a good team at the mixed level. Last year at the World Championships, these two beat Canada, who wound up winning silver. They've got lots of good results. In this very tournament, they beat Norway and Russia, who are going to the playoffs. They just lost to everybody else. So you got to think that Matt and Becca Hamilton will be drowning their sorrows in Korean beer until Matt Hamilton has to get it together and play the fours with John Schuster.
And now, your bronze medal, Ben.
The bronze medal for me is Switzerland so far. They're the defending world champions because of some of that high randomness I was talking about. Canada outplayed them in the final. But at their best, they can take anybody. They beat all the teams they were supposed to beat. They lost the teams you kind of expected them to lose. They're meeting expectations, and they're dangerous.
And that leads us, obviously, to the silver medal.
Well, the silver medal for me is Norway. Kind of alluded to this. They came through the tie break to sneak into the playoffs in fourth place, but they've been much better than that. Their shooting percentage, I think, is 75. Of course, not only did they beat Canada, but they beat Canada properly. They looked really good in that game. And they've got a couple losses, but that's mixed doubles. I've been talking about the randomness all day.
And now, that leaves us for your gold medal of the curling tournament so far, which means your gold medal of the mixed double.
Oh, Finland. Definitely Finland. No, it's Canada. I try to be contrarian, but when you have one team that's shooting 80%, even though they almost weren't trying in their last round robin game, they've been finishing these games very early. Caitlin's been great all week. John Morris has stepped it up the last couple of days, and he started to look like 2010 John Morris again. He started to look like he's really interested in this. It's dangerous saying these things so early because at any given moment, it can all go horribly wrong. But so far, Canada's been clearly the best team in the event.
Ben Massey, thank you very much for your time today. We wish you a great Olympic Games, and we wish you to find a way to maybe get some rest.
Thank you very much for having me on.
We'll be right back with our gold and silver medals for day 2. Five Rings Daily, live at 10 a.m. every day of the Olympic Games at youtube.com/sports podcasting network. You can find the on-demand version of the show via your podcast applications, Apple Podcast, Android, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. Look for the Five Rings Podcast under the Sports Podcasting Network. And if you'd like to support us financially, you can do so. Patreon.com/sports podcasting network. With your help, we're able to do all the production values that you see. This is listener supported, and it is all happening because of you. Thank you for your response. Now we're back, Duane, and I have been happily surprised by the response, and I want to take a second to let all the brand new listeners know that we appreciate you coming on. We've been here since 2014 talking about the Olympics. We go daily during the Olympic Games, and we do like your support. We do like to have you on during the conversations on Twitter, and that brings me to follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and at 5 Rings Podcast to join the conversation. My phone's been vibrating nonstop for 3 days, and that's just the way I like it.
Yeah, lots of new follows, and we do appreciate them. And as you say, we do go daily during the Olympics, and we have also during the run had a few other events that we cranked up the coverage a little bit for. And the more Patreon support that we get, the more we can do that. So if you get to consider, if we get up to a certain number, I don't know what that number is, then I might even be able to go more than what I planned for the Commonwealth Games in April. So that's if you like this stuff, help us out just a little bit. We're not looking to get rich. We're just looking to cover our time during the events. All right, we should move into our gold, silver, bronze, wood, and poutine medals of the day. We've typically been starting with the poutine medal, so shall we start there again, Kevin?
Let's start with the poutine medal. I'll let you introduce this one, and I have a honorable mention in the poutine medal, because we decided only one poutine medal for the day, but I do have an honorable mention because a moment got me all teary eyes. It was kind of dusty in the office earlier today, and it's all her fault. But who is the poutine medal recipient for today?
All right, the poutine medal to continue our curling talk goes to Jeff Stoughton, the coach of the Canadian men's team, because he essentially put a protest in about a measurement this morning. Now, that's not that weird in the sense that coaches will do that all the time. They're advocating for their athletes. They're trying to get the best advantage. But in this particular case, Jeff Stoughton wasn't really protesting about anything that went against the Canadians. He was upset about the fact that a mistake in the measurement was inconveniencing and making it unfair to the rest of the field. So yes, the Canadian team was protesting because other teams that were playing them weren't getting a fair shake, and he felt that was unfair and unsporting, and that they should make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I think that's so very
Canadian.
curling.
It's very Canadian, and that's a very Canadian way to give a poutine medal. So Jeff, have a poutine on us. Enjoy your moment. You're a nice man.
All right, your honorary.
Yes, my honorable mention is to Andy Naughty. She was leading the Moguls finals on the women's side, heading to her last run, and she faltered a bit. Conditions were terrible. She had difficulty, just visibility, and after her first jump, she didn't land properly, and she kind of went off course, and she didn't finish her run. And at the bottom of the Moguls, she was interviewed, and she started crying and saying, "Look, it's my first Olympics. I've never been in this situation, being first overall, heading to the last run. I was nervous. It was difficult, but I learned a lot. I'm going to pick myself back up. I'm going to try this again." Man, I was crying. She was crying. Everyone was crying. It was beautiful. She will pick herself back up again. She is pretty much, with Justine as well, Justine Dufour-Lapointe, the future of the Moguls on the women's side. And it is beautiful to see an unexpected first place heading to your last run. It didn't go as expected. You finished sixth instead of maybe on the podium. It was difficult, but you still got up with your head up high. Thank you, Andy Naughty.
The Moguls, the finals is the most brutal format that you can imagine, because she was first seeded, but none of that matters when you go into that final run. It's just the best of those final six scores down. So it's kind of it's very brutal. It's very unforgiving, right, that way, and the pressure would be immense to going down the hill last. And had she done what she did for the rest of the events, she very well could have ended up. Her scores would have put her on the podium. So all she had to do is replicate it. And unfortunately, the little incident happened there, and it just, she fell at the wrong time, basically. And that's brutal, right? But, the format's great for TV, and I think that's probably why it's in there. But it's got to be hard on the athletes, that one for sure, Kevin. All right. Shall we?
Yeah. And on that note, let's move to our wood medal. Let's go to the wood cutting place. Let's get our slice, log, and talk about a moment we didn't like really much today. Duane, let's start with you.
My wood medal goes to the Olympic commentators out there on the various national federations, national broadcasters that are refusing to call the athletes from Russia, rather they're just calling them Russian. This is slipping in more and more, particularly in hockey and in figure skating. Figure skating most of all, because I think in the figure skating world, there's this perception that the figure skaters are getting an unfair shake, and perhaps that's an argument. But the idea, it's a very minor punishment to begin with, that they have to be called Olympic athletes from. So I think it's incumbent upon those of us that are covering the games, those of us that are talking about the games, to at least give them that little bit of a reminder that they're under some kind of suspicion here each time you go out there. Calling them Russia and just being flippant about it, come on, we got to be better than that. This is not good stuff that led to this point, and It was a very minor punishment in many, many ways. So that's at least enforced the minor punishment. So my wood medal goes to commentators that keep saying Russia instead of Olympic athletes from Russia.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It does. And here on the Five Rings Podcast, we will try our very best to never say the R word, but always refer to them as the OAR. My wood medal for today, Duane, is watching the ski jump competition yesterday. It got me thinking. And it got me thinking of the evolution. And it got me thinking of sports that sometimes gets caught in time and stay there. It's not 1960 or 70 anymore, is it? And when I looked at the ski jump competition, it got me thinking. How much Big Air is so much more fun to watch, and how much Big Air is gaining popularity, and there's hundreds and thousands of people who are going to attend this competition live when it happens later on. There was like 10 people watching ski jump, and I'm pretty sure it was the family or other jumpers. I love the ski jump. I love the aspect of it. But what the Olympics considers ski jump is not even ski jump. Like, K90 and K120 are small hills compared to what's available out there. And when you have other sports pushing, yes, there's risk involved in ski jump. And if you push the envelope and you push the limits and the jump a little higher, how about you make that jump a little, that angle? How about you raise a little? How about just for, there's a lot of things that are wrong with the ski jump world. And there's a certain complacency and there's a certain elitist aspect of that sport that kind of gets to me now when I'm looking at this to do maybe the democratized version of ski jump, which is Big Air. You can twirl, you can do. I think ski jump needs to take a good, hard, long look in the mirror to see what it could be, to see who it is first and what it could be. Because right now, it just ain't cutting it.
It's a age-old debate amongst sort of those old traditional sports in the Olympic movement and whether they need to evolve or even in some cases leave the Olympic movement altogether.
Oh,
but the argument they have to stay in are not. Go ahead, Kevin.
It's bound to disappear, right? If there's with the investment in infrastructure needed for ski jump and the amount of countries that are competitive in it and the worthiness of having it when you have other sports that are more internationally played in the winter world, it's one of the sports that will be one of the first ones to be crossed off if Agenda 2020 and things like this continue to happen, where some disciplines that are cost prohibitive are cut out of the game. Ski jump is one of them. So if you don't want to disappear, you better take a hard look and maybe start what could be a ski jump reform.
Nordic combined might be in more trouble than ski jump, but yes, certainly. Well, you look on the summer side, you got stuff like modern pentathlon and things like that a lot of people wonder about. But the Winter Games, what's fortunate for the Winter Olympic sports is that they need to fill the program out a little bit to fill the TV times up. So that's because that's where their money makes. So that's why they're probably safe for a while, why they're adding sports still, and they might even add some more sports. They're running out of sports to add. That's the problem, right? So,
yeah, true.
So yeah, but
when I was looking at some research before I was talking about this, there's and I'm gonna butcher that name, Daily-PyeongChang in Austria. It's a K200. All right, K200. Get this in your mind: 200-meter jump. And the record is the same gentleman. No, actually, it's not Winninger. It's an Austrian that has the world record in 2017 on that hill of 223-meter jump. Can you imagine the hang time? Can you imagine? That's what you want to see on TV. Can you imagine in HD picture a ski jumper floating for about 20-something seconds before he lands? Now that will bring the crowds back. Yeah, it'll be scary. It'll be a bit dangerous. Is it more dangerous than trying to flip 4 times and landing on your head and almost dying, trying to do a big air or a half pipe? Or exactly. I think it's time we rethink about this.
All right. Shall we move to the bronze medal? I'll let you start this one.
Let's start with the bronze medal. My bronze medal for day 2 is Ted Van Bloemen, silver medal for Canada, 5,000 meter, the best ever result in long track speed skating. And I'm saying long track because I shouldn't say long track. It's just speed skating on the oval in Gagnon. Ted Van Bloemen was first up until a Dutch skater was going to do last. And of course, the Dutch skater would do what Dutch skater does, which is win gold. But Ted Van Bloemen, which he's actually Dutch and is nationalized as a Canadian, his dream was to move to Canada to follow his dad's origins. And he did so, found a home, found happiness in Canada, and found some silverware literally now around his neck. 5,000 meters, best ever result in speed skating for Canada.
Yeah, if you read some of the Dutch reaction to the fact that he got the silver medal, they're not maybe as universally happy about his decision to leave the Netherlands for the Canadian team, and they may take some issue with your last statement there, but then suggested he came over here for his own benefit. But whatever, I mean, that's how the world works right now, and his father was born in New Brunswick, so
exactly, why not? And maybe he would not have made the Dutch skating team. Who knows? But it is what it is. And for once, we're the beneficiary of it and not the other way around, so I'll take it.
Yes, and he is the current world record holder in the 5,000 meter second place today by just a hair. It was a very exciting finish. If you didn't see it, go check the replays out on that one. Okay, my bronze medal, Kevin, goes to the Finnish women's hockey player Rita Nienanen. Rita Nienanen is the only women's hockey player that has been in all 6 editions of the women's hockey tournament in the Olympics. She debuted in 1998 as a 24-year-old. She is 44 years old. She took the ice today against the United States. The mere fact that she's still out there, still performing, still contributing to the Finnish hockey team, 6 Olympics in, is remarkable unto itself and should be commended. She was the leading scorer for Finland back in 1998. She's probably not that anymore, but she's there for her leadership, and she's still able to keep up. And as I said, 44 years old, 6 Olympics, and a sport like hockey, that's worth highlighting and celebrating there. Finland only 1 bronze medal. That's kind of been the big disappointment of the women's hockey tournament of the years, because traditionally they are the 3rd ranked team in the world and do typically finish 3rd in the world championships, but just happenstance, Olympic after Olympics after Olympics, has led to them only with that 1 bronze back in the original tournament in 1998. Kevin, that's my bronze medal of the day.
Are you saying the Finns lack some finish?
They've just had terrible luck, really, in many ways. I mean, they were upset by a goalie that stood in their head last Olympics. That was the Switzerland game. The Olympics before that was 2010. They got upset by Sweden. And the Olympics before that was the time that they ended up in the bronze medal game. But that was the time U.S. got upset, and the only time the U.S. or Canada has ever lost a game against another team in the tournament. So they ended up having to play the U.S. for bronze, and they lost that game. So a bit of bad luck there. They lost today 3-1 to the States. They looked pretty good at times in that game, although they were still outshot. What I've seen so far, they continue to look like the 3rd best team in the tournament, but they got to get it done when it matters, and they've had some bad luck with that, and that would be a fitting way for her to bookend her career if she were to do that. I don't think she'll be back at 48. You never know, though.
Well, you never know. She is Finland's Gordie Howe after all, so I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see her in 4 years' time in Beijing. Moving to my silver medal, Duane, and this one is a silver medal. Is Canada's first silver medal, first medal, period, of the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Games, and it's going to Max Barrett. Silver medal slopestyle snowboard. The conditions were difficult. Turns out it was a question of adjusting and making sure you can have a clean run and be rewarded for that clean run, and Max did so. And we did talk yesterday about in our snowboard culture versus sport discussion, and I've even looked more into Max since yesterday, and there's a lot of things about Max's growing up and how he approaches life, challenges, difficulties, competition, stuff that are very similar to what I preach as the kind of way that I like to do stuff. If you've been watching all the things we do here, you know that I'm much a DIY type of person. Like, everything you see here is pretty much, we're doing podcasts the way I think it should be done. So over the years, learning a lot of new technologies and everything. And that's kind of the way Max does things too. Had a trampoline, screwed on his own shoes to a board, learned everything on his own. A very DIY mentality to his sport. And it's kind of rewarding for a lot of different people. And I feel kind of rewarded watching Max win his silver medal because, yeah, Doesn't matter if it's how you do something. It's about passion. It's about what you put into it, and you get out of it what you put into. And he did put a lot into it. And his favorite event is coming up, Big Air. So imagine what he can do in his best of 2 event. Because slopestyle, it's not his specialty.
Fair enough. Actually, it's funny. We had the conversation yesterday about how comparing him to McMorris and sort of the different philosophies and how they approach it. And of course, McMorris got the bronze medal in the event, and I think he's Pro is destined his whole life to sort of be in the shadow of McMorris, even though, because he's such a big personality, Mark McMorris is, that even though he got the bronze and Pro got the silver, it was still the headlines where Mark McMorris gets bronze, and I thought that was kind of funny and sad and all that. But
that's
he's
why
silver medal kind of.
That's why he's my silver medal, because I think it was worth it, and there's a enemy frenemy vibe going between the two of them, and yeah, they're kind of battling for the spotlight, aren't they? And because of a crash, because of an accident, spotlight moves from one to the other. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Not taking a side here, but yeah, if they were wearing 2 different countries' badges on their parkas, it would be an amazing rivalry. So yeah, maybe he's Schumacher to his Villeneuve. Maybe one of them needs to move to another country. So I don't want it to happen. What I mean is, how about we embrace the rivalry between the two? Why not? Why not?
Fair enough. And certainly in the X Games, they don't really compete under the flag as much as they do in the Olympic competition or World Cup competition, so they might have a bit more rivalry there. The American was the first 2000s born. The Red was his, I forget his last name off the top of my head. Red was his first name at any rate. He was the first athlete born in the 2000s to win.
Red Gerard.
There you go.
That's quite something.
First athlete born in the 2000s. All right. Feel old yet, folks out there with that one? Only 17 years of age. Of course, snowboarding is a very useful sport. The McMorris stuff, you're hearing it everywhere right now. So in a show like ours, there's not really much point continuing adding to it. It is a remarkable story, the comeback for sure, and he is a remarkable athlete, and I think I'll just leave it at that and wait for Big Air, because they're both contenders in that as well. Okay, my silver medal, Kevin, is the Italian pairs skating team of Hotarak and Marquet. They skated out in the team event today, put down the performance of maybe their lifetime. The skating, I'm not a big skate fan between Olympics, but I saw it and instantly understood that it was just joyful and well done and perfect and to the best of their abilities. And the look on Marquet's face, the female skater, when they finished it, she just screamed with excitement that they managed to put this great performance down on the Olympic ice. They'll have this memory the rest of their life. This is a decent team that could contend, if everything goes well on the individual side as well. But in the team event, they pushed Italy up into bronze medal consideration. And if you're a Canadian, a patriot, they also really helped out the Canadians by taking the Russians down one spot. Sorry, the Olympic athletes from Russia down one spot to give Canada another 2 points gain on that. They almost have an instrumental lead after with three free skates to go. Canada looks really likely to capture gold there. But the performance by the Italian pairs was quite amazing. Well, yeah, they're 6 points up. It's hard to understand how they would lose that. But yes, the Italian skaters, Hotarak and Marquet, are my silver medal.
I have to watch Patrick Chen next, and not convinced yet. I haven't really ever been convinced, and we kind of never seen. So yeah, even though it's 6 points away, I'm still nervous. I'm still not taking that lead that's for granted just because of history.
Fair enough, but the biggest swing you can have in any one single event is 4 points, because there's only 5 teams skating, so it goes 10-6. So even if you finish last, you get 6 points, right? So it is more difficult to come from behind in the second part of the team event, and you have to assume, based on the skaters that are being put forward for the dance event, that Canada will win that with 10 points with Scott and Tessa. So really, Russia would need to finish 4 ahead of Canada twice, 4 and 3, and that's how they overtake them. And that doesn't seem likely, but we'll see. We'll skate that one out tomorrow. There's a medal for sure there, absolutely, but gold is what people want there now.
All right,
Kevin.
Let's move to my gold medal. My gold medal for day 2. I had difficulties because, Duane, there was 2 that I really wanted to put there. 2 that I think deserved the gold and none other. But then I started thinking, and legacy and accomplishments started to come into the question, and one is so young. And yes, 17-year-old Red Gerard would have been a choice on any other day, probably. just because of the fact that Sports Illustrated had predicted his victory. He's 17 years old, had difficulty in the qualification. It was tough conditions, and at 17, you don't have the experience of an older rider, and you had to adjust to the same conditions, and you had to do a certain amount of run. But he was surpassed because of someone's history, legacy. A three-peat happened yesterday at the Gangnam Oval Center. Sven Kramer of the Netherlands, third consecutive gold at 5,000 meters. That's 5 kilometers. That's 5 kilometers of skating and turning left. It's dizzying. It's tough. It's hard. And he did this effortlessly. He was like a mile in front of the guy doing it with him. It was impressive. And I have to say, Sven Kramer, third consecutive gold for Sven Kramer, 5,000 meters, a three-peat, fully deserving of my day 2 gold medal.
It's the obvious choice, and it's my gold medal as well. He had a negative split. He was just cruising out there the entire time. That was not a close race. Third consecutive gold medal in the event. First time that's ever happened. It's his 4th gold medal in the long distance, long track events. He's obviously in line to capture another one at the end of these games when you get to the upper distance of this as well. He is considered a legend in the Netherlands, probably their most famous skater right now on what is a stacked team, as we said before. I mean, there was jokes, and if you read, as much as I can't really Dutch, when I was translating things, they were joking about how they get another half medal too, so they're basically winning everything right now on the oval. So
but it doesn't work that way. We thank you for Ted Van Blumen, but you do not get half of that medal.
There you go. It's going to show up on Canada's line there for sure, 100%. Yeah, look, it's the obvious choice there. You mentioned the slope style, and certainly that was a great performance by the young American. I think any of those three that finished in the top, they were very close together. It really just comes down to taste there. One thing I've noticed about the judging events in these games is that they're really rewarding athletes that are technical more than spectacular, and I think that's something that we should watch moving forward. Even in the moguls, they were really rewarding the athletes that could turn well, that were carving the turn, that weren't necessarily getting the biggest air, but were being the most precise and landing the most precisely and things of that nature. So that's a trend that I'm noticing, and I think that's what the American did very well in his ride. It wasn't as spectacular as McMorris, and it was almost an identical ride to Perot, honestly, and they finished very closely.
In judge sports, though, there's not a lot of ways to standardize how you want to judge opinions, right? So when you're actually adding standards of technical abilities in the judging aspect of things, it makes for a barometer. It makes for an easier agreement with different judges. It makes for maybe a more consistent judging base. So I kind of understand the aspect of rewarding some technical aspect, and yes, there was some change as well during the slopestyle. We talked about this earlier because of the conditions. Some runs were more rewarded for cleanliness late in the competition, but earlier on it was more rewarded technically. So you do have you have to kind of guess what the judges want, but when you're basing yourself more on the technical abilities of a rider or of a skater in figure skating, or of someone being able to achieve a certain standard of technical abilities, it kind of makes for a more consistent judging base. Now, Duane, before we say goodbye for day 2, let's take a look at our brand new medal standings. I know I worked hard last night, and I made a little new graphic here. So let me get out of the shot for a second, and let's take a look at Germany: 3 gold, 1 bronze. Netherlands: 2 golds, 2 silver, 1 bronze. And then we got as well after Norway, United States, Austria, France, Republic of Korea, Sweden. Let me just get the right one here. Of course. After Sweden, we have Canada with 4 medals, Czech Republic, Finland, Italy, and that wraps the medal standings for today. But Germany, powered by their ski jump. I wish it was a long jump. But ski jump victory, and as well biathlon, has now 3 gold medals. Women's biathlon, men's biathlon, and the ski jump. 3 gold medals for Germany, who are dominating the game so far, at least in the gold medal side.
big upsets on that biathlon race today. The two favorites, the French and the Norwegian, were considered almost slam dunks, and they didn't end up on the podium. I guess the Olympics do funny things. Real quickly before we say goodbye, you mentioned the Sports Illustrated predictions, Kevin. As someone who went through and did all the research for our previews, I can tell you exactly how Sports Illustrated does those predictions right now, and it makes me a little less impressed by them. They basically just take the World Cup standings and then they put a 20% bump on the Americans. I looked at them all. That's pretty much what they do.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can point this one out, but blind nuts get squirrels sometimes. So there you go. At any rate, Kevin, that's going to be my end of my day. It's been a long one. There's a lot of events because it was a weekend day. So we'll head towards tomorrow, and lots of fun stuff to talk about at 10 o'clock tomorrow on the Five Rings Daily. And until that time, I'll let Kevin, as always, say goodbye.
Even a broken clock is twice. Right, is right twice in a day, right? So that happens. You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. The show is at Five Rings Podcast. Thank you for listening live every day, 10 a.m. on YouTube, youtube.com/Sports Podcast Network. The on-demand version is available in your favorite podcast applications. And if you don't find it, let us know. We'll add it there at Five Rings Podcast, Sports Podcast Network at gmail.com. And you can give us a hand, give us a pat on the back, give us some motivation, and the best way to motivate someone is by rewarding his time with money. Patreon.com/Sports Podcast Network. You can do so. Help Duane and I continue to raise the level of Olympic podcasts everywhere. Until tomorrow, as always, have a good Olympics.